Imagine owning the undisputed champion of the movie world. You control over 9,000 locations. 65 million customers visit you every week, and your brand is a household name. Then a tiny startup walks into your office and offers to sell itself to you for $50 million. You turn them down. You laugh at the offer. 10 years later, your entire empire is gone. How does a company this powerful disappear because of a single meeting? To understand the scale of this mistake, we have to go back to the year 2000. At its peak, Blockbuster was generating nearly $6 billion in annual revenue. Going to Blockbuster on a Friday night was a cultural ritual. You walked the aisles, scanned the shelves for the newest releases, and grabbed snacks at the counter. It was a physical experience that felt permanent. This massive scale made it difficult for the company to imagine a threat they couldn't simply outbuild or outspend. Their 9,000 stores weren't just buildings. They were a fortress that seemed to guarantee their future. At the time, the technology we take for granted didn't exist. There were no smartphones, no smart TVs, and no streaming services. Movies lived on physical discs and tapes. Blockbuster's business relied entirely on that physical footprint. Because their model worked so well for so long, the executives struggled to see a future where the store itself might become the biggest obstacle to their success. While Blockbuster dominated the suburbs, Netflix was a struggling website that mailed DVDs in red paper envelopes. They were losing money and desperate for a way out. The founders, Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph, realized they couldn't survive on their own. They needed the resources of a giant. They traveled to Blockbuster's headquarters in Dallas and made their pitch: buy Netflix for $50 million and help us take the movie business online. The Blockbuster executives literally laughed at them. They were convinced that customers would never give up the habit of driving to a store to pick out a movie. To them, Netflix was an unimportant niche service. This rejection forced Netflix to pivot. Instead of becoming a small part of the Blockbuster empire, the startup had to find a way to compete with a giant that had just publicly dismissed them. Netflix focused on the one thing Blockbuster customers hated most: late fees. If you forgot to return a movie to the store, Blockbuster charged you a penalty. It was a major source of their revenue, but a massive source of customer frustration. This chart shows the difference between the two models. Blockbuster relied on unpredictable penalties, but Netflix introduced a flat monthly subscription: one fee, unlimited rentals, and no due dates. As Netflix removed these friction points, loyalties began to shift. Millions of people traded the trip to the video store for the convenience of a mailbox. Then came the 2007 internet revolution. Netflix launched its streaming service, allowing people to watch movies instantly on their computers. No driving, no waiting, and no physical discs. Netflix proved that if you made it easy enough to watch a movie from the couch, the physical video store would eventually become unnecessary. By the time Blockbuster realized the threat, they were trapped. Those 9,000 stores were now a liability, requiring billions in rent, electricity, and payroll. They couldn't move as fast as a digital competitor. They launched an online service far too late. Netflix had already captured the market, and the data needed to keep customers subscribed. The arrival of smartphones was the final blow. People could suddenly watch content anywhere, on trains, in airports, or in bed. Netflix was perfectly designed for this world. Blockbuster was built for a world that no longer existed. In 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. The empire collapsed, and thousands of those once busy stores were boarded up. Blockbuster didn't fail because they lacked money. They failed because they were tied to a business model the world had already moved past. Success today is no guarantee of survival tomorrow. In business, history shows that the biggest companies are often the most vulnerable to changes they think are too small to matter. Kodak ignored digital cameras until it was too late. Their dominance in physical film blinded them. People were ready to stop buying it entirely. Nokia missed the shift to smartphones, failing to see the digital revolution. And Yahoo famously turned down the chance to buy Google for a fraction of its future value. Disruption usually looks small and unimportant at the start. It looks like a joke until it becomes an existential threat. The next giant company might already be laughing at its future replacement. The only question is whether they will notice the mistake before their empire disappears.